You're in your own space right now. Look at that.
I am so excited. I realized that the great thing about white is it can be any color you want if you put another color on it. So I got some lights and a little bit of art.
The great thing about white
really
is
see
you
my
can be
art.
any color you want. Didn't we get in trouble for that back in the old days of making TV and movies?
Oof, stop it. Yellow card. I know. I wanted
I
so
haven't
much
done a
to have a
yellow
yellow.
card.
I wonder.
Yellow card Brogan. What else is new?
I really wanted to have a yellow card like at work.
I know. We have the Reverend Karmen Michael Smith on. We are going to talk about his book, Holy Queer. We're going to talk about the church and the LGBTQ community. We're going to talk about what's going on in the world.
Gender and faith and justice and ownership. It's all coming.
I have faith in a gender. Let's go.
Hi, everyone. Tim Kitzer from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, welcoming you to The Backpack Show. Your hosts, Chris Brogan, Kerry Gorgone, Boom Shakalaka. Backpack Show.
So excited.
Harley. Hey,
Do
I'm going to do some ads before I forget to do
an
some
ad?
ads. Yeah, let's do some ads. Do I even have any more ads? I don't even see them anymore.
Hi, Chloe.
Where'd they
Chloe
go?
from Scotland.
Oh, I'm looking in the wrong place. Hey, look at that. How come it's not working?
You hate
Dude,
this one.
StreamYard. You should make a show like this. You could probably do it better than us. StreamYard, you go to get your own Reverend, but you can go to see Brogan. And author Reverend. Which goes first? Author, Reverend? Reverend author, I guess. Because he's going to be a Reverend more often than he's an author. I mean, he's got to write his third book. Super, really holy queer.
Or his ninth. You're still working on that test any day now.
You can get, don't even.
Would you like a .online domain? Of course you would, because who wouldn't? You can get one at cbrogan.net/online, and you can get that domain for just 99 cents for a whole year if you use the code Chris in all caps. I don't know why it has to be all caps.
Let's drag our Reverend Karmen Michael Smith on here and say things and ask things. Hi, Leslie. Hello, everybody else. You ready? Hello, Reverend. Welcome to the game. Glad to have you here.
How are you?
Best day of my life.
So we did not ask your pronouns.
Yeah, we did not ask your pronouns. He, him?
He, him is fine.
Okay.
You wrote a book about the coming out of Christ called Holy Queer. It is controversial and groundbreaking if you read the summary.
Is it already banned like in all those schools below the...
They haven't heard of it yet, so as soon as they get wind of it.
Just send them a free copy.
This is talking about specifically the story of Black queer folk and then comparing it to Christ and all that. It makes sense to me. What gave you the impetus and the idea that I am going to make this happen? I'm going to put this out. I will suffer the slings and arrows because there's no way everyone's going to stay quiet when I put this book out. What made you sign up for this fight?
Well, I'll say it's from the perspective of me. It is a critique of the Black church in which I grew up in, and it is also my experience as a person of faith, Black queer Christian, as I say, born on the third pew in the church. So that's why it's really geared towards the Black LGBTQ plus community, because that's what I am. But I think it does have a greater implication, as I'm making up words, implication for the larger LGBTQ plus community and our allies. It's just my experience. It's like a first-hand account. But the impetus was, I heard Reverend Ed Bacon and Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith on one of those Oprah after the show, or I think they were reading A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. And Reverend Bacon said, "To be gay is a gift from God." And I'm like, whoa, hold on. And then Michael Bernard Beckwith, I second that. And so I was like, yeah, this feels like truth. This feels like real and something I've known in my spirit. Because when you hear truth, it resonates. Like when you go to buy, your favorite piece of clothing and you're like, no, yes. It was a yes. And I'm like, got it. So I was like, I'm going to write a book and I'm going to talk about all the ways that this is true and real. And it really didn't come together. I didn't have enough life experience at the time. I didn't have enough of my journey to add to it. And so when I went to seminary, I'm like, ooh, when I go to seminary, I'm going to learn all the things to like wrestle with the people about the scriptures and Leviticus and all of this. And I'm going to rewrite this book. And after I graduated in 2019, the pandemic in 2020, and it came back and was like, okay, write this book. And now I feel like I had enough to give, to put into it, to make it impactful. And everything, like every door, every opportunity, every conversation started like guiding me towards like, this is it. This is the thing. And then when I finally told people like 2-3 months before, I'm writing this book called Holy Queer, The Coming Out of Christ. Everyone was like, oh, that's going to be good. I'm like, wait, what? Like, no one's like, okay, so I must be moving in the right direction. And here we are.
There must have been a time. I mean, I was raised Catholic, so they don't like anything and they don't like anybody. They don't like Presbyterians even. Like anybody is suspect. So how did you manage to hold on to your faith? Was there any point at which you were like, I feel actively rejected, by my own faith? Or did you find like pockets of your faith in which you could both believe and feel like you were the way you were supposed to be and living the life you're meant to?
Well, that comes from my upbringing. I tell people, and it's often like, wait, what? As a pastor, I don't think people need to be in church on Sundays or every Sunday or 6 days a week or 5, whatever it is. I believe that faith is supposed to be your practice that strengthens your relationship with that which is greater than you. I call that God. If it doesn't strengthen that relationship, if it's not a practice, then what are you doing? And so I grew up in a household where there were spiritual experiences happening outside of church. And so when I got to the point of being in church and working and feeling like as a gay man in the church serving, but not too high up because you can't be an authority because people might actually listen to you.
Right.
I just felt like people wanted the magic, but they didn't really want me. They wanted the work and not me. And so I felt like there's a long history in the church of LGBTQ plus people being used, but not necessarily useful. So I didn't want to be used anymore. And I stepped away and started having amazing spiritual encounters in nature and with animals and children and some human beings, because we can be quite difficult. But having these encounters in my everyday life. I think my household upbringing really led to, it's okay to step away. And I encourage people all the time, your faith practice, the institution that you go to practice it is a relationship. So if it's abusive, it's okay to step away. If it makes you feel bad every time you go, it's okay to step away. And step away for your own growth and own peace of mind and own self-care. If you are not well, then how can you serve other people? So I stepped away, and in the isolation, I started to find a new community. I started to find the power of solitude and began to build my own tribe and community around me, and felt even more confident when I do go back into faith spaces to be like, yeah, that part's not for me.
To spirituality and nature, I feel like I have to back up. So because spiritual experiences with animals and children and out in the world, what does that look like? Can you tell us about one or two?
Something as simple as I'm not a big exerciser. I exercise for health, but I hate going to the gym. So I would take walks every now and then when I got super stressful, instead of trying to eat Skittles and all the little candy to oral fixation. So I started taking walks, and I realized in the breathing, in the getting out of your head, because I will repeat the story in the encounter over and over and over. I can't believe she said, and he did. But just walking and be silent for a moment, Karmen. Oh, look at that tree. It looks like a hand reaching out to you and embracing you. Wow, do you see that opening in the clouds? Why is it that I keep seeing little rainbows just on the ground, on the glass by the bus stop? You become aware and realize that life is always speaking to you, but it's in a whisper. It's so silent that if you are so noisy in here and outside of here, you can miss it. And then you start to say, oh, so these flowers are not competing with each other. They're all beautiful. Like all of these roses are beautiful. They're not exact, but they're just receiving the sunlight. Could I just sit here and receive the sunlight for a moment? And wow, how my soul is watered and nourished in just silencing the noise and seeing the example of the flowers. Or you notice that bird just came down and got something to eat and went on about its way. Do you think it was worried about what it was going to eat? Or it just like trusted that that was going to be there? And when the worm showed up, it grabbed it. And yeah, and it doesn't need.
But what was the worm thinking? The worm was like, oh, I'd like to get some sunlight.
I came up to get sunlight, but just that, even that sort of faith chain of like, you came up to get sunlight and that bird needed nourishment and it came, and then that bird will go back and nourish something. Just this sort of like, circle of life. But just how it's all unfolding for us instead of like competing with us and against us.
So Leslie says, I love that. One of my favorite parts about walking. While you were talking, I couldn't help but think that some people have been using faith as an excuse to try to put laws in place that would essentially ban being trans or take rights away from transgender people and some states, LGBTQ in general, other kinds of rights. And we don't even have to go on about women. But how, as a reverend and a religious person yourself, looking at religion being used that way as a tool for oppression has to sting. Does that find its way into your book and your preaching?
It does. I call this supremacy, like an evil trinity. There was, I believe it's 313, when the Edict of Milan was signed. And Constantine the emperor, the Romans had ruled forever, but the Roman Empire was now divided between leaders, and both of them wanted control, and it was waning, and they were trying to figure out how to get power. And Christians were still being persecuted, but people were going towards this religion. And Constantine read in the Old Testament that God had gone before the people, defeated their enemies, and gave them their land. And he said, no more persecution of Christians. I'm going to free these Christians because God, if I follow this God, he's going to slay my enemies, give me their land, and we will be powerful once again. And we've repeated that over and over and over because that was the expansion of Christianity around the world, not from the Jesus narrative of love everyone and love thy neighbor as thyself. No, it was, how do I get ownership of? How am I going to get your stuff? How am I going to slay you as the other? And that's what keeps repeating in this narrative of faith, which is a perversion of the faith narrative of any particular faith. Love is the underlying element. And we've allowed a remnant to become the majority in saying, no, this book God wrote and said he would give me the land and give me, I'm going to be made great. It's not about you. And so I have to get rid of the other. And I see that that's happening over and over and over again throughout history, up until now when we have trans lives being, I need God. If God won't eradicate you, I'll take my Christian power and I'm going to eradicate you so that I can have ownership. It's really painful to see. But what I realize is that when I go to churches, it's not the majority. The majority sees people as humans. It is these people with microphones that need to be unplugged.
Karmen, you have so many different angles and approaches that you could go after this. You have a great singing voice. You like to, make music. You get the chance to preach. You could fight this battle in a lot of different ways, and you chose to fight it in the framing of religion and church and that sort of a thing. Your youth was, like you said, you were born in the third pew. You were born into a world where church was the one place where you could feel whole and where you weren't seen just as a color. You were seen as many things. And is that why the church, or why not be, another Lecrae? Why not be another person out there, kind of going after this with, great albums and not a book in a world where people are a little twisted to try to even read books. What made you land here in the books in the church?
I think because I see it as something that will remain forever and a day going forth. This book is there. And we go back and we read books from centuries ago. We forget the people, we forget the voices, but someone always stumbles upon this book. I mean, I just finished the audio version of this because I had to narrate it myself. But I just finished that, and I'm like, there's something about the written word in this society, in this culture, and then in other societies, like African societies and Afro-influenced cultures, that the audible word lives on, passed down. And I thought, what is the best medium to get this information to the world, really? That there's been a huge perversion. Jesus was not the Jesus you see right now. This was not the faith that people were trying to wrestle with when Jesus was walking, and it just so I wanted to find a tool in what I heard in my own prayer meditation time, which is the voice I believe to be God, say, write a book. And so here I am with this book and audiobook coming soon that allows, even when I'm gone, there's no interpretation needed. This is what was said. I mean, the Bible is a written book, and look how it is used. And the best-selling book of all time, and translated in over 25 different languages. I mean, I could only hope that my book gets to 25 different languages, but just the fact that it still remains as this tool. And I hope that even when I'm gone, people will come back to this and say, no, there is a space of love and inclusion for the LGBTQ plus community in this sacred text.
So Collier Ward on LinkedIn's wondering what he just walked into. We're talking with Reverend Karmen Michael Smith about his new book, Holy Queer, The Coming Out of Christ, and about reconciling gender and gender identity with your faith, and also taking ownership of your life, and apparently being a great vocalist, and audiobooks over written books. I agree with all of it. So now I think you're caught up, fully caught up. Have you reached that point yet, Karmen, where somebody that you know has read the book and has thoughts about it and very much wants to tell you all about their thoughts? Like just someone you already know, like somebody that you went to school with, or like.
Well, I will say many people in my community do not read books. The Black community, just as a tradition, is an oral tradition, but there are Black people who read books. I want to make that distinction. But just as an oral society, many of our stories get passed down. But my sister, one of my sisters, who I think it's okay to say that she has often and for a very long time loved me, but been challenged by what she would say is my lifestyle. Being a gay minister, being gay is just, I think, was hard for her to reconcile, just like it is for many other people in their families. It's like, I love my son, I love my daughter, I love my nephew, my grandson or granddaughter, and I also love God. And the pastor says this, but I know this human being. So she read the book. I sent my family members copies first to get reactions. And of course, my mom loved it. She loves everything I do. It's your mom. It's like, I'm so proud of you. But this particular sister who has been very hurtful at times in her own journey of seeking and saying to me something like, well, maybe you're just not getting ahead because you're gay. You think like God's not going to bless you because you're gay. And, that was hurtful at the time because I was really struggling to find my place in the world. But it wasn't that she was trying to be hurtful. She loved me and was like, well, what can we do? Like, what else can happen so that you can be successful? Like,
have you tried not being gay? Like that kind of helpful?
Let me take this pill and drink this water. And
yeah,
right.
It's so, she read it and she actually called me. And her response was of like elation and support, which I had never gotten about anything that I've done. And she was like, yeah, reading it, it really makes you think, what have we been taught? What was really going on then? Why are we still doing this? People are just people and you have to love people. And listening to her talk with such conviction, I'm on the other end of the line going, yeah, sure. And she's like, well, whatever you need for me to do to support, if I'll make t-shirts that say holy queer and dare someone to ask me a question. And I'm like, wait, is this the same person? So that was, I think, the most impactful. Like from the beginning, she just was elated and was like, what do I need to do to support?
There's the whole time I'm listening, there's something I was thinking about with regards to phases in entertainment. And I was thinking about the fact that for a while, it was like if there was a gay person on a show, then that storyline was going to involve the fact they were gay, the things they run into as a gay person. Like there was like ditto black, ditto anything really. Like, you know, oh, you're an Asian person in a typically white profession. We'll talk about that. I'm thinking about that as you're
I love that
talking
they even
because-
say that. They even say
Well,
that.
they-
Like the characters will have a
the
conversation
music,
over
that's the
lunch. Like,
thing.
you know, as a
And
woman
like
in finance.
the dialogue sounds like that in these shows too. As a gay man, you know, but I was thinking about, for instance, I'm watching this new series on Netflix called The Diplomat, and there is a, as far as I understand, non-binary or trans character who.
I'm sorry,
By
I
Ron.
started watching it yesterday, and I'm like already.
And you love it.
No spoilers.
You love it, right?
I love it.
Okay.
Okay.
But Ronnie in that show is clearly not, you know, gender normative or whatever the right term is this week, but possibly trans, possibly non-binary. Who knows? Ronnie is wearing a really cool little tie.
Mhm.
Not a subject or a storyline that I've seen so far. You're ahead of me, so maybe. I guess why I wanted to bring that up was, as you were saying what your sister said, does holy queer at any point kind of involve trying to explain that? Like the fact that I am a man, I am gay, I'm a reverend. You know what I mean? Like it's just not because you're gay isn't why you're any of those things. You just are also gay. Do you get there in the book at all? I haven't read the book yet.
Yes, section 2, the sort of like the ending parts of section 2 leads to how it is a part of my being, but I'm still a being, and it's a part of my being. It doesn't negate. I use the reference of people will say, you know, he's a gay pastor, or he preaches gay sermons, you know, and I'm like, no, I preach sermons. And yes, they will come through my lens many times, but a pastor's job is not to preach their life. It's to preach to the congregation in front of them. And so I have to take several different angles and perspectives in delivering the gospel to people. But what I find is that people will use the term gay. You know how today it's normative to be like, yo, that's gay, bro. That's gay. And it's a form of saying like it's almost dumb. Like it's kind of weird. It's dumb. And if you say that before you say that I am a pastor, he's a gay pastor, or here's a sermon, he's a gay sermon, it's to remove authority, because we know what the image of gay conjures up. If I just say the words, for many people, especially conservatives, it's an immediate negation, a diminishing of. So then I'm not an authority. So you won't really listen to me. You won't listen to my sermon. It doesn't really hold the same amount of weight because it's gay. But I tell people it is a part of my being, but it is not the totality of who I am. It's the same way of saying, you know, you dyed your hair red today. Your red head does not describe your total being.
It's not what they say on Reddit. So my kids would, so for what you're saying, it sounds like people treat that qualifier as like a debuff, as the kids say.
Yeah.
So you ever get the contrary criticism? Like, hey, I came to this church because I thought your sermons would be gayer. Because I'm gay and I would like to see myself in your sermons. Could we have more gay?
Wait,
please?
why does this holy water not have glitter in it? You know, I know what you're saying.
Right. Why do you not have a fan every time you point to the sermon?
I was told this was a gay sermon.
Maybe I should try that on Pride Sunday in New York. I'm going to be at Riverside Church, the historic Riverside Church, preaching. Maybe I should bring a fan. But no, truth is truth. And again, when you hear truth, it resonates within. And so I have not gotten the inverse of that. I've not gotten yet to date, I will say yet, that why aren't your sermons gayer? I think that in a world full of noise, people just appreciate truth I'm not a theatrical pastor or preacher. I don't use props, and I believe that truth resonates with people, and it's just my job to listen and then to impart the truth that I receive. Not about my own agenda. It's not a gay agenda to turn the entire church gay or something like that. Just it's the truth that I know that I've received.
The gay agenda. My kid's agenda, my trans kid, is to exist.
Exactly.
Right.
That's the agenda. Without interference,
innovative.
active interference from legislatures and school administrators and others.
Right.
Well, that's one of the beautiful things of the gospel when Jesus says that I've come that you may have life and life more abundantly. I'm like, it's the first part because everybody wants the abundance, but I'm like, I come that you may have life because you're just existing right now. So because you're just existing under this structure that's trying to control you and this Roman Empire that wants to take everything from you and own you and tell women what to do with their bodies and trans kids that they can't have care and Black and brown people that their lives don't matter and so on and so on. That's just an existence. But he's saying that I'm not a religion. I am truth so that you can have life. And that's just really the call that I have.
I was thinking about, you're being raised in Texas of all places, probably one of the less tolerant states in the union in many ways. Although weirdly, Texas is getting a bump from places like Florida, Alabama, Arkansas lately being even worse. Tennessee.
Hold my beer.
Texas, we're not them. Like, that's weird. But I was thinking about like what you were saying, because also I think as you're trying to bring this gospel and this sermon out there and explain it to people, your point about not having a gay agenda per se, you're just saying, hey, look, I would like to worship and all that. Do you get to take off your reverend glasses a little bit? Do you get to, or do you always walk with that sort of reverend lens on, I guess, as you're out there in the world? Like, how do you bring this to the civilian world?
I think that's how I have been able to even accept my call is shortly after 2011, when I got my call to ministry. I was at I think it was a baby wedding shower, or it was a birthday party. Brunch in New York's a big deal. So, they had gotten this side of the restaurant all set up, they had all the people. And I got up and I went to the bar to get another drink. And this person walks over and starts talking to me and says, what do you do? I'm like, well, I have different jobs, but I'm also a minister and I do this. And she starts telling me, I don't really like church, and I feel like they don't care about me and it's all about the money. And I started talking to her and people started gathering around. And in about 6 or 7 minutes, we had a church experience there at the bar at this brunch. And I knew then, this is what needs to happen. Not a robe and some jewels and all of that. That needs to go away. And people just need to hear truth. And that's when I started to see that Jesus walk. I'm not in a church every Sunday preaching. I get invited to churches and then I have a digital ministry. But I don't go into a church every week because the ministry comes to the people. Jesus came to the people. Asking people to come here and just fill pews every Sunday is not my calling. Some people are called to do that. It's not mine. Mine is to be an everyday, walking, talking, coffee, drinking, having a mimosa, tequila's my favorite, drink with people and breaking bread with people and letting people see you as a person of faith instead of saying faith that's been
and here's a
person.
What did you just do? That's so rude. Apologize to Carmen.
Sorry, Carmen.
Rude.
I was raised Catholic as well, although I gave it up for Lent.
So you should feel really guilty about interrupting.
You gave it up for Lent?
I did. One of my several bad jokes about religion. We did hit one sort of spot on the show. Exactly. I bring them with me. I bring the drums. Here we go. I'm pushing this button now.
and here's our person of the day. Kaboom!
Got to give it to Joanne because she's been really very active in our little chat today, and you get our Person of the Day award. You get a free apple.
My morning.
So look at that. You just got to swing by any old store, buy yourself an apple, and you get one.
And wash it really, really good before you eat it. I would bake it into a tartlet.
Dawned on me that we also didn't mention to the good Reverend Karmen Michael Smith. We need to move
question.
We need to move on to the backpack question, which is everyone who ever comes on the show, from Sir Mix-a-Lot to Sister Ann Flanagan, has answered the question, what goes in your backpack? This can be one physical thing or something metaphorical. It could be something like an avocado or hope for the future. Kerry, what's something physical that you could add to a backpack?
Extra set of teeth. DJ Cumberbund. You just never know.
Yep.
How about to carry an extra doorknob?
Extra doorknob's useful.
My friend's apartment had a broken doorknob.
What's something metaphorical we can add to this backpack?
Kindness. Ariel Helvetica, burlesque performer, put kindness in the backpack. You would appreciate this, Reverend. We make Kerry say that every single episode because she was talking to Nikki Porcher from Buy From a Black Woman and was laughing so hard at what Nikki said that Kerry laughed in Ariel Helvetica's face. We weren't over it yet. You know how that happens? You get the giggles and you're not over it yet, but it's Ariel's turn to answer the backpack question. So she did. And we were like me and Nikki we lost it completely. We laughed right in her face. It was awful. But the reason, in fairness, the reason that I laughed is because Nikki Porcher wanted to put black women in her backpack. Now she meant the network. But I was like, I'm pretty sure that's not okay. And I mean, it sounded like a possibly illegal act. Right. So,
my goodness.
Need to ask you that question.
So, what goes in the backpack, Reverend?
Is it going to be a He-Man toy and a Skeletor toy? What's going in there?
Oh, you can't even start with the He-Man. Like that's my.
Well, I want to know which one's your other favorite besides the main characters.
I actually, this is not going to be good. But Skeletor was kind of cool. And then the Purple Panther. The Purple Panther, I actually had one for years because I got it. I think I was 4 or 5. And I got Castle Grayskull and I got like the He-Man character. You didn't know I was gay. But, and then I got just this man with the pecs and okay.
I had that same set though with the little prison.
Yes, and then the little cat came along with,
yeah.
And it was like suede, so you could like pet. Yeah. So anyway, nerd alert. Yes.
Oh so, what would you add to your backpack besides Panther?
Tangibly, I would say a scent. I like nice, smelly, scents. So I would add a scent to my backpack to just be able to spray anywhere, and then. Metaphorically, I would add, I'm not going to say love because that's too cliche. Rest. I would add rest to my backpack.
They used to say love was the thing that there was too little of. Now I think it's rest. I think you're correct.
We get enough love. Let's just get some rest.
That's it. We're all signed up.
Just take a moment. You're always on the journey.
I'm really glad you're out there preaching. I was born and raised Catholic, like I said, and it was a strange experience. It was in Augusta, Maine, and we would go to church, and I would listen to the Catholic is still formatted, and so we'd listen to the gospel and the sermon and all that sort of thing, and I'd be like, oh yeah, so that's what we're supposed to do, and we'd go across the street to the Dunkin' Donuts because Maine is not that far from Massachusetts, so there were 700 of them. And my grandmother and other relatives of mine would be saying mean things about other people. And I was like, I don't think I got this figured out. But one time it got really crazy. I will say what my priest said to me, and it was a little weird, not that way, but he said,
even then though, that's